Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Happiness Retreat. I am your host, Kimberly Treves, and today we have the good fortune to be in conversation with my dear friend and colleague, the beautiful and multi talented Maria Hykin, who is a chronic pain expert and self care coach. And Maria's coaching is dedicated to helping her clients move out of pain and into a radiant life full of possibility and purpose. Hello, Maria, and thank you for taking your time to share with us today.
Thank you, Kimberly, for having me. It's an honor.
This is so exciting. I've met Maria a few years back, and I've been waiting to have the opportunity for this interview. So, yay!
Yeah.
So, Maria, as this conversation is all about spirituality and the soul and becoming the master of your own energy, I'm very, very happy that you are here to share with us today about how pain can actually be a vehicle for transformation. So, Maria, can you please start by telling us a little bit about your background, your education, and what prompted you to become involved in the subject of chronic pain?
Of course, of course. Yeah. Well, I am originally from Russia, from St. Petersburg, and my education has nothing to do with what I'm doing now. I am a linguist by education. And at some point, when I was in my early 20s, I moved to New York and I worked in the financial industry for about 15 years. And now I live in the Caribbean already for the past 10 years. I live in the Caribbean part of Mexico in Cozumel. What happened is when I wasn't, well, I had chronic migraine since I was a child, but it was always manageable. It was always like I would pop a pill, like Excedrin or whatever, and it would go back to normal, right? It was all fine until one day it wasn't, and no pills, over the counter pills were helping. And that happened about 13 years ago when I was in New York. I was a chief operating officer in a small consulting firm for mutual funds. And it's one day I woke up completely, like, I thought I was dying. My head was just exploding. I literally thought that I was dying. I was vomiting. I couldn't function at all. So I had to go to the ER and everything. And so this is how it all started, my kind of moving into the chronic pain coaching world. Of course, it took some time. But what happened is the pain was so debilitating that I was not able to function. My first, like, really horrible migraine lasted 5 months nonstop, when it was just literally, I couldn't do anything. I had to take off work, and I was on many drugs. I had to be in the hospital a lot of times, like with on morphine drip and everything. So it was quite dramatic. And so eventually, well, that was it was actually interesting because at first it was my first kind of initiation to how a human being, how we can adapt to anything, right? Including horrible, excruciating pain. Because at first, like I said, I thought, oh my God, I'm dying. That's it. This is my last day on earth. And the pain stayed exactly the same throughout those 5 months. But my attitude to it completely changed. And I was like, nah, whatever, like, yeah, it hurts. So pop a pill, go to take morphine, do this, do that. And I was in pain, but I was functioning. And I actually returned to work and everything. And I was like, wow, this is amazing how we can adjust to anything. And I guess why I'm saying this is because a lot of people will live in pain, right? Both physical and emotional. And we just adjust to it. And we feel like, okay, this is part of life. And we just have to manage it. I actually don't like this concept, or at that point, of course, I went with this concept of managing pain. I went to pain management clinic. I took a lot of pills. I did that. I did that. And so I kind of, I was in the zone of managing my pain until I realized that actually we are not supposed to live in pain. It is not necessary. And we can teach ourselves, like train ourselves physically, emotionally, and mentally out of pain. Of course, it took me years to realize. And it took me quitting my job, moving to another country. And the way that happened was that I decided at some point the pain was so excruciating that I couldn't work again. And my neurologist said, "Oh, you know what? You have to take leave of absence, medical leave." And the funny part is, I was in so much pain. I was dying. And I was like, no, I can't leave. My company is going to die without me. Like, I can't. I had a very high post in the company. I'm like, no, 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 no. Everything is going to collapse without me. And she was like, well, you have to choose. Somebody is going to die. It's either your company or you. I'm like, if you put it this way, all right, I'll take my medical leave. So I took the medical leave and I came to Portugal here. And interestingly, in the 2 months that I spent here, I was in pain, and but from time to time I was, lucid and available to live. And I got into scuba diving, and it was very interesting, very fulfilling, very cool, very just eye opening because you meet so many people scuba diving from all walks of life. And suddenly I was like, wait a second, not everybody has a 9 to 5 job. People are traveling and still able to afford scuba diving. And it's like an expensive sport. And some people like work for half a year and then do something else for half a year. And it completely shifted my perspective. And I was like, interesting. Maybe I should try some of that. And I decided to quit my job and go travel for a year. And that was my plan. And after a year of traveling, which I did do, I did what I committed to, but I wasn't ready to go back to New York. I wasn't ready to go back to my corporate job because I don't know, I think something shifted so dramatically in me throughout this year of travel. I was still in pain, but I don't know, it opened my eyes, this traveling. And I came back to Kojamal and I was like, well, I'm going to just stay here a little bit. I'm just going to stay a little bit because I'm not ready. Like, I'm going to stay another month. And then I'm going to stay another month and another month. And then my friends in New York, they kept asking me, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? And I'm like, well, another month, another month, another month. And then I noticed that they stopped asking. And I was like, wait a second, why nobody's asking me when I'm coming back anymore? And I checked the calendar. And then at that time, it had been 3 years that I was at Brisbane. And I was like, I guess I'm living here. So that was basically, my moving story. And little by little, I just started, I completely got out of my corporate surroundings and randomly I started teaching yoga. I didn't plan on it. It just kind of life kind of put me in it, and I loved it. And somehow people that I attracted for teaching yoga were all people with pain, both physical and emotional. They're so intertwined, right? It's sometimes it's very hard to separate. And so little by little, I started working on that. And what was fascinating to me is that since I was a child, I always wanted to have a purpose. Well, I didn't call it purpose then. I wanted to have a passion. When I was little, I wanted to have like an all-consuming hobby. I don't know, collecting stamps or playing music or whatever it is. And I looked at my friends who had this, and I was like, I want this, because I thought that, oh my God, like this is going to be, I guess, even as a child, I wanted this fulfillment of an all consuming passion. And I tried so many things, starting from early childhood to, you know, quite mature age. And I just couldn't find anything. Like I would go into a hobby full force and I would love it. And like I would pour all myself into it. And I would be like, oh, this is it, this is it. And then something else would come up and I was like, oh, but I love this too. So it was always like there was always a struggle. So I was always looking for a purpose and I couldn't find it. And I was quite, my life was perfect. I made a lot of money. I had a lot of friends. I was very fulfilled at work, if you look at my position and everything. But something in me always was like, there's something more. There is something more to life, something more to life. Like, I need to find it. I need to find it. And what happened when I started teaching yoga here on the island, it was very small groups at first, right? It was 3 people, 4 people. And when I was in New York, I was the chief operating officer of like 100 people mutual fund consulting company. So I had about 100 people under my jurisdiction. And I'll tell you that I had never felt as fulfilled in my work as I started to be when I started teaching yoga. It was just amazing. So I kind of found my purpose without when I finally relaxed into it. When I finally stopped this, like, I have to have it, I have to have it. Like at some point, I was just, okay, whatever. I'm never going to find it. I'm in pain, whatever. My life is a mess. And suddenly, boom, and everything started happening. So that's quite fascinating.
That is so interesting. I think none of us, not one single person on this planet, makes a major change without having some kind of physical, emotional, or mental pain or anguish or challenge or
Yes.
upset, but it has to be a big one, not just, I'm a little bit unhappy today. You have to get to the
Yeah.
point where you're almost debilitated. Why is that?
I have a theory on that. I really think that since we're talking about spirituality and soul today, I really think that there is this like soul self, or you may want to call it like higher self or whatever, right? Whatever your belief is. And there is this human self. So the soul self, we're just not in contact with it all the time if we don't have some kind of practice, meditation practice, mindfulness, well, whatever it is, the practice that you're doing. And so we're just not hearing the messages. The
Mhm.
messages are always there. So for me, since childhood, I felt this like nagging, right? I have to have it. I just didn't know how to verbalize it. I didn't know how to channel it, but I knew that there is something more. So I was like, it's a hobby. It must be a passion. I must be all consumed by something bigger than me. And so this is because, we grow up on this literature that, oh my God, or we see like, painters and artists, and this is awesome, right? But some people just don't have this all consuming passion. But we still have a soul that wants more, whether we get to really like pour it in one thing or not. And so I think that what happens is the soul gives you those messages. Your higher self always gives you those messages like, come on, there is something bigger. There is something bigger. Like touch on it, open the veil, look at it. Um, but you're so busy. The human self is so busy achieving and going, through the motions of, okay, I have to have a job, I have to have a house, I have to have a family, that we're not used to listening to those messages. But then the soul is like, well, I can't let you ignore me because I know that it's going to be better for you. So it's like, and then I can, I have a cat, and so when she wakes me up wanting to eat, she first like puts her paw on my cheek and she does this, and I'm like, I see it, I feel it, and I'm like, not waking up. And she's like, with a nail, right? Like a little bit. And I'm like, no, I don't want to wake up. And she's like, and, and so whenever I feel this like more nail and more like beating on my cheek, I'm like, okay, I don't want to be scarred, right? So I,
Right.
I get up and I give her food. So it's kind of the same thing, right? So the soul is like,
Yeah.
oh, I need a hobby. You need a hobby. You don't want to listen? Okay, well, pain, right? Or, oh, you don't want to hear? Oh, you want to take over the counter drugs? More pain. Oh, you don't want to listen to that? More pain now. No drugs are going to work on you. And, or whatever. Like for me, it was the migraine, right? For many people, it's, I don't know, a divorce or something like a loss of a loved one or some major, well, like you said, right? Some mental anguish or emotional
Hmm.
anguish or whatever it is. But I really feel that the messages of the higher self are always there. We're just not tuned into this voice, and we hear it when it's already shouting, and you're like, haha, this is what you meant. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think we're trained from a very young age to take our cues from the outside world. Because, even if you tell your
Absolutely.
mom and you have an imaginary friend, and the imaginary friend said XYZ, and you're playing with your dolls or you're playing whatever you're doing, boy, girl, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, that you're using
Yeah.
your imagination and your intuition,
Mhm.
and you're really in your own zone, and then you verbalize what's been going on. And it's like, okay, well, that's great. But, now you're in kindergarten, you have to learn to read. And now blah, and now blah, and now blah. And then boom, all of a
Yeah,
sudden,
exactly.
you're 40.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, life goes by very quickly, that's for sure.
Yeah. So tell me about, you found relief with yoga, with moving to an exotically beautiful area of the world. And now you have clients. So, I mean, I've never really been a huge sufferer of migraines, but what other types of chronic pains do you find now, the clients that you're attracting now? What kind
Hmm.
of pain do they
Yeah,
have?
of course. Well, I started, well, just because I suffered so much from migraines all my life, I started, of course, helping people with migraine. Um, and then somehow, well, through yoga, I find people with all sorts of chronic, like physical chronic pain, like for example, low back pain is very common, right? Or this area, your neck, your shoulders, etc. A lot of people who don't have chronic pain physically, but are in this emotional anguish, like anxiety or depression, that is also, this is pain is pain. Pain, the more I research pain, the more I work with people and myself, I understand that our um, like kind of traditional thinking around pain is not necessarily supported by modern day, by contemporary science. Pain is always emotional pain, mental pain, physical pain, always intertwined. It's never like, oh, I have a headache, right? And if I have a headache for a year, it's never going to be just a headache. I'm going to get down, like I'm going to be depressed, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm not able to do anything. Well, the depression may be deeper or more shallow, but still, it is, you're down, you're blue. And you will be anxious because you will, when you don't have pain, you are like, oh, okay, I can go out, but what if I get in pain, right? So I used to go out always with a pill box, and I would get anxious if I forget my pill box at home, because what if I get into horrible pain and I don't have my medication right away? Only later I learned how to train my brain out of pain, And it is possible. You train your body out of pain, you train your brain out of pain. And it's all like kind of this mental, social, emotional, physical matrix
Mhm.
that is pain. And so, however you enter it, through mental pain, then you're going to have some physical expression. You enter it through physical pain, you're going to have some emotional and mental expression of it. So you enter this matrix, and then there's everything. You're going to have some social expression of it. You're going to have some spiritual expression of it, right? Socially, it's like, okay, I can't hang out with my friends because I'm in pain. I can't work sometimes, right? Because I am in so much pain that I cannot focus. Spiritually, it's like, what the heck is this pain about? What am I doing wrong in my life? So it's always like so many dimensions to pain. And so you can't just look at it literally, right? Oh, my lower back hurts, let's fix the lower back. No, no, no. The lower back hurts because this is where you're receiving the message from your higher self in that area. But really, it's the message that something needs to be changed. Pain is really a message, that something in our life is not working, that something needs to be changed. It can be a way of, your lifestyle. It can be your job. It can be changing it. Maybe you need to break up with your husband or wife. And unfortunately, sometimes the changes are so big that we don't even want to, they're scary, right? We don't want to go there. We want the pain to stop. We know that something needs to be changed, but we want something to be changed without changing anything.
Well, we want something out there to change to help us in here.
Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't work, unfortunately, this way. And I was, in fact, like I was able to release my pain only a couple of years ago. Like now, for the past 2, 3 years, I am, for the most part, pain free. Sometimes I get migraine, but it's like so easy compared to what it was. But it took me years, it took me years of understanding how it works, of researching, of trying this, trying that, of like basically breaking down all my belief system.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not just like you can't just there is no, I love it when especially nowadays on, I mean, nothing wrong with that, but it's just funny to me that there are some for example, yoga poses for headache.
Right.
uh there is no such thing. There is no such thing.
Well, you know
Like,
why that all comes out? It's because I'm not saying there's only so many yoga poses, but for the most part, the popular yoga poses, there's an infinite amount of yoga poses. And, your yoga journal has to produce a magazine every month. And, this other yoga teacher who you're following needs
yeah.
to convince you to follow for another month. I mean, we know why, but,
Yeah, I
but
know, I
not
know. But
really.
it's such a mixed message, and people
Yeah.
come to me and like, oh, what are the best exercises for the lower back pain? And I don't know what would be the best for you. Let's find out. And
Right.
this is basically the journey is to finally accept that the pain is whatever pain it is, emotional, physical, mental, right? Whatever pain and intense discomfort you find yourself in that you want to change, if you really want to change it, you definitely need to look within. And instead of looking for like a fix, right? A magic wand to like, boom, 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 a magic pill that you're going to pop and suddenly all the pain is going to go away. Doesn't work this way,
Mhm.
right? Doesn't work this way. You have to look within and start accepting that, okay, this pain is a message. What is it trying to tell me? You need to find a way to have a conversation with your pain, to have an open dialogue.
Mhm.
And a lot of times what you find out is shocking, right? It's quite unpleasant. You don't want to go there because you find some things about yourself that are, you don't want to show it even to yourself. And yet, only through radical acceptance of who you are truly, you can really release your pain and and be available for the world and be available to truly love somebody, to be really compassionate, to really hold space for another person. But it all, of course, starts here, with your exploration, internal exploration. It's like it's like, when you do cleaning of your house, right? You can we always like clean all the obvious spots, and it's woof, it's nice. And then you know that behind that fridge, oh, there is so much stuff. I don't want to look there. I don't want to take this fridge out and, first of all, see all those disgusting things that are there, and then to clean it up. Oh my God, so much work. I'd rather just not even move it. Let it be
Mm-hmm.
there. The same thing, it's like you need to do a really deep cleaning of this house, physically and emotionally and mentally, spiritually, but that requires you to look in every dark corner and find like all these unpleasant things, or things that you're like, oh my God, my fridge didn't work because it wasn't plugged in. Whew, I need to buy a plug, or I need to change a fridge. And it's like, oh no, it's so expensive. I don't want to change this fridge. So it's the same thing in your life. Like, oh, you know what you need to change, but it's like so much hassle to change it. No, I'd rather go with pills, or I'd rather go with anxiety.
Yeah. So the suggestion of a couple things that you've touched upon is that, pain has a purpose. It's a messenger, and it also helped you find your purpose, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So are a lot of your clients um brought to that realization when they work with you of, is it actually that their pain is trying to get them to the point where they can live into their own purpose?
I think so. Yes. What I find is that, well, for me, definitely, pain was this message, and it got worse and worse and worse until I really truly stepped into my purpose and had the courage to do it. Um, a lot of times I feel it's this way. It's like basically being in pain, whatever the pain is, emotional, mental, or physical, is this like it's your chance to look within and to find what it is you're missing, right? What it is you're missing, what needs to be changed. And usually when you change it, you automatically step into your purpose. And of course, when there's a lot of now big words, right, around the purpose. Oh, my life purpose. It sounds so big and
Important.
important, right? Yeah, it sounds so important, and it sounds scary. Like
Yeah,
what
it almost
if
sounds
my
daunting, right? Because when
yeah,
someone
yeah,
says,
totally.
"You don't know your purpose? What's wrong with you?"
Exactly, yeah. And yet, like, how can you know your purpose if you don't explore, right? Like
Right.
it's just you can't. And but your purpose can be anything. It can be to grow a garden, or to be peaceful within yourself, so that all your loved ones like kind of see it, and you become a role model for them. Or
Mm,
it can be something big, like you're a healer, or I don't know, a, the next president, or whatever it is, right? So
right.
everybody's purpose is so different, but it's something that brings you fulfillment. It's like I was telling at the beginning about teaching a yoga class for 3 people. It doesn't seem that important, right? It seems like,
Right.
yeah, whatever. You come to a studio, there's like space in the middle of nowhere. But I felt on top of the world
Mhm.
there, versus in any of my meetings during the corporate um, time, during my corporate job, when I had hundreds of people I spoke to, and I don't know, converted into sales or whatever, told people what to do. I never had that fulfillment.
Mhm.
So that's like seemingly unimportant yoga class brought so much joy into my life. And at first it was like, "Ah, this is silly. This is silly. Like after making a ton of money, after, being this important chief operating officer, how can you?" And in fact, some people that most, the majority, vast majority of my friends and my family, they are all super happy for me and were from the very beginning. But there were a couple of people saying to me, "Oh, what are you doing with your life? You are so smart. You could have,
Right.
made $1 million now through whatever, being a corporate something." And I'm like, "But I don't want to. I don't want to anymore." I loved it when I was there because I didn't know that something was there for me, something better was there for me. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that for everybody, it's the same, right? For
Right.
somebody, it could be a
Yeah.
corporate job.
Someone needs to be a CEO, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I was a good one and I loved it. It just didn't bring me fulfillment.
Right.
And the kind of fulfillment that my soul needed, the kind of development that my higher self, needed me to go through was not available in the corporate job, but for some people it is. And
Mm.
so there's no magic pill. There is no five poses to purpose, to find your purpose. And it's just an internal exploration that comes first through the radical acceptance of your pain, of like acknowledging I'm in pain,
Mhm.
really accepting it, and then start this deep cleaning behind like every fridge and whatever thing that is hard to move,
Yeah.
and changing it, and changing it if you're called to change it. And then suddenly, so what I find through my working with clients and through my own journey is that the pain becomes much easier to handle when you are rooted in your purpose, whatever the purpose is, right? Small
Mhm.
purpose, like small, not, I mean, there is no even such things, but whatever we think, quote unquote, unimportant to the world and super important to the world.
Right. Right.
But whatever your purpose is, when you feel this joy of fulfillment, you stumbled on it. This
Mhm.
is where you are. You've arrived. And when you've arrived into your purpose, suddenly living with pain, with like physical manifestation of pain, whether it's anxiety or it's just, it becomes it becomes impossible.
Right.
Like it starts to diminish
Yeah.
all on its own without any pills. I'm not against pills, by the way, just for the record. I'm all for drugs. However, on me, drugs stopped working, and I just, again, so that was my big message from my pain, right? That you can't, you just can't escape it. You have
Yeah.
to step into whatever is there for you. You can't. And so what I find is when people really are accepting of this, and are really ready to look within and explore, miracles happen. Miracles. Suddenly there is, either you become, yeah, there is pain, but it's not all consuming. It may be the same grade of pain, right? But suddenly it's not all consuming. Suddenly it's like there is a bigger something
Mhm.
in life that, yeah, pain is part of it. It's like this saying that I love, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. This is
Yes.
exactly how it is. Like we create so much, yeah, pain will always be part of life, whether physical, emotional, mental, whatever. But how the suffering that we create around it is what perpetuates it more and more and more and more. That is not to say that it's all in our head. Absolutely not.
No,
But
but
of course,
our
it's very
relationship with
real.
it can intensify
Yeah,
it, is what I'm hearing.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so once you look within, once you start exploring what it is this message is about, um, and start kind of exploring your purpose and start being excited about your purpose, however, however small or big or exciting or mundane it seems, but it gives you joy and fulfillment, suddenly you're like, oh, I can hold this. I can hold more than this, much more than this. It's just part of it. And then it slowly diminishes. And not really by itself. It's not like a complete spontaneous healing miracle. Well, at least I haven't seen anything like this. But suddenly you find ways to to heal it. For example, for me, suddenly, once I stepped into all of this, suddenly I found the right movement practice for myself.
Mm,
And that was like a big chunk of it. Suddenly I found the meditation practice that works for me. And that was another big chunk of it. So it's not like I was just sitting there accepting. I was sitting there accepting and exploring. And suddenly I was like, wait a second, there are more things than pills and morphine drips and traditional, exercises and stuff like this. Suddenly things started coming into the field of my vision
mhm.
that were like, oh, I'll try that. I'll try that. I'll try that. And this is exactly how I work with my clients now that I tried all of it, or seemingly all of it.
Mhm.
I have such a big, so many tools under my belt. So people who I work with, they don't have to take so many years as I did to arrive to the same, because we can, okay, let's try this. Works,
Mhm.
doesn't work, okay, let's try this.
Mhm.
Works, doesn't work. But it's not a prescription. It's not a prescription, it's an exploration, it's an inquiry.
Right. So your company's name is Quiet Transformation, and everything you've just described shows that it is a very quiet transformation. You realize there's an issue and you start working within. So tell me how you support your tribe and all the different ways you offer your support to them, please.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Well, the actually the reason I call the company Quiet Transformation is because the transformation is very deep and really, huge. However, it's not apparent right away, right? So you do things, and it's not like you suddenly become a different person because you did that particular meditation. But when you find yourself in a situation, for example, a year from now, and you respond to the situation in some way, and then you're like, huh, a year ago it would have been this, this, and this.
Mhm.
This transformation is so subtle yet profound that you can see it only in retrospect.
Nice.
And suddenly you're like, oh, okay. So, anyway, to answer your question, I I do one-on-one coaching,
Mhm.
and it's usually around 6 months, 6 to 12 months. I feel that this is, from experience, this is a good journey to explore and to see what's working, what's not working, to really understand how the brain works, because there is a lot of like brain reprogramming in this, in
Mhm.
this work, and the retraining of the body through physical exercise and retraining of the emotions through mindfulness practice and different meditation practices. So it's like kind of three, layers that we have uh, to go through. And of course, some people take less time, some people take more time. It's also individual. It's hard to say. I also we have a beautiful yoga group here on the island that that I started some years ago, like 8 years ago, I think. And we invite everybody on a donation basis. So some people take it free, some people just contribute whatever they can. And because it used to be just in the studio for all these years, but because of COVID, something good came out of it for this part as well. We actually now have a Facebook group that There is a ton of Facebook Live classes from me and from other teachers, and they are on all sorts of, all sorts of styles, all sorts of meditation practices. So that's, a huge support for a lot of our the members of our tribe. And I also have a Facebook group that's called From Pain to Purpose. And that's exactly basically supporting this journey that is starting with your pain and then finding your purpose and creating this huge transformation that will last forever.
So the yoga Facebook group, that's an open group, and
That's
the
an open group.
Pain to Purpose Facebook group is for your clients. Yes?
Well, no, no, actually, it's private group, in
Okay.
the sense that you need to, answer questions when you get in, just so that it's a safer space for people to share, to make sure that it's like-minded people. But it is free.
Okay.
It's not paid.
Okay.
Yeah, so everybody's welcome, and it is a very supportive community.
Wow. So much info. And and so needed. Just so needed because there are so many people walking around in pain. And doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Like you said, you could be a CEO of a company and still need something to shift in your life. And yeah, this journey that you bring your clients on, it's definitely a beautiful journey. So,
Yeah, I have to say it seems miraculous. The transformation
yeah,
that I witness all the time is miraculous.
unreal. I know you're going to get a lot of inquiries about this interview. So, Maria, thank you so very much, so very much for joining us today. I treasure all of your insights and wisdom, which have been so very informative for us all. And to anyone watching,
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for inviting me. Such a pleasure.
oh, thank you. You cut out just for a second. Sorry about that. And to everyone watching, thank you for joining us in this episode of the Happiness Retreat. We hope that you have gotten some inspiration, some motivation, some clarity, and some guidance in your connection with your own soul and in becoming the master of your own energy. Thank you for joining us, and until next time.